A few weeks ago, while most people were scrolling through short-form clips of the latest escalations in Middle East, I was sitting right here, in this very spot, staring at a blank page. I was trying to write a specific chapter for my book, but for some reason I could not type. Every time I looked at the news headlines and then looked back at my draft, I realized something terrifying. The world expects us to choose a side in 30 seconds, a blue team or a red team, a black or a white. But when you are a writer, when you are trying to synthesize global chaos into a cohesive narrative, you quickly realize that truth does not live in the headlines. It lives in the gray areas. It lives in the stories of ordinary people caught in the crossfire of history. Welcome. I'm Shyam. Today, I want you to be behind my curtains, not just as someone who analyzes geopolitics, but as an author who feels the weight of the stories I have to tell. This is how writing about global conflicts completely broke and then rebuilt the way I view this world. When we look at flashpoints like the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, or the devastating reality in Gaza, the media gives us data points. Shipping costs struck. Costs went up by 10%. A missile was intercepted. A geopolitical chess piece was moved. But when I was researching for my book, digging through personal testimonies and historical context, I kept falling into something what I call the Nuance Trap. This trap says the internet demands absolute certainty. If you talk about a conflict, you are expected to have a neat, polished opinion ready for a comment section. But during my analysis, I realized that history is not neat. It's complex and dirty. Take the maritime escalations we have witnessed recently. On paper, it's a standard geopolitical strategy, blockading a choke point to choke the global trade. It's an intellectual puzzle for analysts, though. But when you look closer, through the lens of a researcher trying to understand the human cost behind this, you see the civilian sailors stranded at the sea, their families crying back at home, and those on the coastline whose entire lives are dictated by decisions made in distant capital cities where they have never been. As a witness author, my job isn't to tell you who to cheer for. My job is to show you the emotional and intellectual labor it takes to look at the global chaos and say, it is complicated, it's devastating, and we need to understand the history before we judge the present. So, people often ask me where this obsession with global affairs and writing comes from. And if you have been in this channel for a while, then you know my journey wasn't a straight line. I spent years chasing a completely different dream. Actually, it was a dream that was forced upon me, I would say, or was being forced upon me. I had to bear the crushing weight of failing NEET 3 times. So 3 years wasted. But life's purpose was going to be found out through a stethoscope. I was thinking that. I thought that if I couldn't heal people in a hospital, I am a complete failure. But looking back, At those failures, at those years, I realized they were the exact moments where I learned what is my true purpose, why I'm sent to this planet. Actually, I wasn't meant to analyze blood reports and treat patients biologically. I learned it. I was meant to use words to dissect the fractures in our global society, something I couldn't do by becoming a doctor. I realized that I was preparing for medical examination not to become a doctor, but just to become a medical student or maybe live a satisfied life. But universe and time, these two have the power to show you what is your real purpose and what are you meant to be. They showed me. Holding a finished book in your hand changes you. It makes you realize that your perspective has immense value. When I stopped looking at my past as a tragedy and started looking at it as an education in resilience, my writing unlocked. I stopped being afraid of the complexity. If I could survive the internal chaos of such a big academic failure, I could sit with the external chaos of global geopolitics and try to make sense of it for you. During my research, there was one specific story that completely shifted how I view my responsibility as a writer. It wasn't a static parameter or a data about troop movement or GDP drops. It was a fragment of a personal testimony from a family caught in a conflict zone, describing how the loudest part of an airstrike isn't the explosion, it's the absolute suffocating silence of the neighborhood right after it happens. That image of silence haunted me. It made its way into the very fabric of how I approach my work. It reminded me that behind every geopolitical headline we discuss on YouTube or notice, there are real people living through that terrifying silence. That's why Siyamosphere exists. Not to give you fast, easy answers, but to stand as a witness to the world together. So today, I want to leave you with a question. When you look at the chaos in the world right now, what is the one story or the one image that has stayed with you? The one you can't seem to shake off? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Thank you for reading my words and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.